Okay, gentlemen, so we're going to talk about the holiday of Shabuot. Shavuot is very simple to describe. Pesach is extremely complex. Sukkot is extremely complex in terms of the concepts, in terms of the mitzvot that are associated with them, in terms of the commemorations. Shavuot is simple. Even though the Torah itself does not give us the information about what we're commemorating exactly, we all know as traditional and educated Jews that we're commemorating Time Torah. And despite the fact that the Torah has a lack of information about the essence of the day, we know, first of all, from history, that indeed Matan Torah did occur 50 days after Yetziat Mitzrayim. We read about it in the Torah and Parashat Yitro. So we know that's the day. It's not just an uncanny coincidence. And because of Torah Shebe'al Peh, from our oral law, now Mishnah, now Gemara, now Poskim, and because of our strong, ironclad, unbreakable tradition, we know that Shavuot holiday is a commemoration of the giving of the Torah by HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Am Yisrael, and our voluntary, happy, accepting receipt of the Torah on this great day. We know that's what we're celebrating. And that's not hard for your average Jew to describe and to articulate. Torah is our identity. Torah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu's blueprint for life. Torah is what makes us the Jewish people. My question for you today is that are we really celebrating the entire event? Or put in different terms, why was the entire event on that fateful day of the 6th day of Sivan, 50 days after Yetziat Mitzrayim, why was it necessary? And what I'm speaking of, it's not just the giving of Torah, but the setting in which the giving of the Torah was framed. We know that Ma'amad Har Sinai was awesome. There were special effects never seen before, never to be seen again. Supernatural effects, which created the context in which the Torah was given. There was a earthquake-like sensation where the mountain and the ground around it was shaking. The house was bo'er ba'esh, it was burning with fire, and Torah says it was ke'esh ochelet. The appearance of God was like a fire devouring the top of the mountain. It was billowing smoke. There was hoshech anan va'arafel, darkness, cloud, ashes. There was loud kolot, sounds that kept increasing in their strength, including within those sounds, kol shofar. It was awesome. It was scary. It was intimidating. It was literally earth shuddering and shaking. And it was something that was a one-time historical appearance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a supernatural form on earth. And that was his revelation. Why was all that necessary? In essence, the Torah is a communication that was communicated to the highest level prophet who ever lived, namely Moshe Rabbeinu, and at a moment of greatest prophecy. And that later was conveyed from this great prophet Moshe Rabbeinu to the people. And it could have been kept seemingly as simple as that. Moshe, whether you want to go up to the mountain or stay down in your tent, receive the prophecy. Hashem will convey the information, and he in turn will then relay that to Am Yisrael. Why was the entire setting necessary of the special effects? And by extension, are we celebrating that as well? And that would make it the celebration the entire event and not just the result of the event. There are answers to this, and many answers to this. I want to offer two. And the second one will be focused on a little bit more. The first one is really an analysis of what Torah is. Torah is a text. It's a legal document. Besides the history in it, its primary function is a legal document which offers us in it the commands of God, which we must obey. Better known as the mitzvot, the Taryag mitzvot. That's what the Torah is. So that document itself, which is in the form of a text, one could argue, without ever living the life of a Jew, that this is something that is comparable to other religions, Christianity, Islam, or other very significant texts throughout history. But one who lives the life of a Jew knows that when you open the book and you begin to read, that this text actually jumps off the page, embraces you, and then finds its way, injects itself into every moment of life. It informs every decision of life and guides every situation of life, from our actions to our thinking to our words. And this Torah is living, it's breathing, it's unending, and its study is infinite, and it is a document that is way more than a stale collection of words on pages. It is explosion of knowledge, which then transforms into explosion of life. And therefore, a literal explosion on Har Sinai, and a very appropriate setting to offer this wonderful gift to a chosen nation. Thus, the special effects. And then definitely the answer would be, we are celebrating not just the giving of the Torah, but the setting in which it was given, because that setting really speaks volumes about what Torah is and how it behaves and what its function is in our lives and in this world. That is surface answer, we'll call it number one. Answer two, under the surface and a little deeper. Again, let's talk about the Torah vis-a-vis human beings, specifically the Jewish people. How does the Torah interface with us? What do we do besides read it and observe it? And what does observing it really mean? So Moshe Rabbeinu, at the end of his life, in one of the last parashot of the Torah, Parashat Nisavim, in his attempt to appeal to the people to keep Torah throughout the ages, to make teshuvah when necessary and return to him, to return to God and return to the Torah, he said to the Jewish people that it's way easier than you think. It's attainable. Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od. It's so close to you. Beficha ubilbabecha la'asoto. There are three words that Moshe Rabbeinu offered to describe the relationship of Am Yisrael to the Torah and how we carry it out. And because of that, said Moshe, it's so doable. Beficha, it's in your mouth. Bilbabecha, it's in your heart, so to speak, or perhaps your mind or your intellect. La'asoto, to do and to carry out. And in that, Moshe Rabbeinu, and that phrase has been analyzed and super-analyzed by commentaries over time. That phrase describes the interface and the different modes of Am Yisrael's means of carrying out the Torah. And let's look at each one separately, and then we're going to present, based on that, a perush that's related to Shabuot and to the Matan Torah and the Aseret Deberot. Beficha speaks of our relationship to Torah in our study. We verbally interact with the Torah by constantly speaking about it, studying it, researching it, reviewing it, and that's our intellect. That is our verbal relationship and interaction with the Torah. Of course, there are certain verbal mitzvot. We say something, we make a mitzvah, we say kiddush, we observe Torah that way. La'asoto, the last one's obvious, an interactive mitzvah. How many physical interactive mitzvot do we have? In every holiday, really besides Shavuot, we are eating masa, marod, and we're giving korbanot, korban pesach, korbanot of the holidays, waving lulav netuah, grain of sukkah, and all the other daily physical mitzvot, tefillin, and talit, etc. So that la'asoto is the everyday active physical interactions with mizvot, and that's a physical way of carrying out the Torah. The middle piece by Moshe Rabbeinu is the powerful and complex one. Bil babecha, in your heart or your intellect. We interact with the Torah emotionally and intellectually. And how do we do that? So before we get to that, I want to mention a metaphoric description of Time Torah that we're all very familiar with. What is giving of the Torah, or Aseh Debirot, in that sixth day of Sivan, likened to? And we know that's likened to a wedding. And there are statements of Hazael that support this concept of a comparison of Matan Torah to a wedding. So I'm going to bring up a document right now that I'll share with you. There it is. And there we are. So if you look on top, there's a pasuk here where I point to from Shir HaShirim, Ba'atara she'ektara lo mob yom hatunato yom simchat lebo. And the crown that was crowned by his mother on the day of his marriage and the day of his happiness. So here the famous Gemara Ta'anit says, B'yom hatunato, referring to Am Yisrael, where the other player in Shir HaShirim, which is a giant metaphor, is referring to, says the Gemara, Zeh Matan Torah. The day of the wedding is Matan Torah. And if you look at that in the context of the other historical days that we have, like Pesach, for instance, could be viewed as Hashem's courting of us, and that is possibly the Kiddushin, when we got engaged to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not today's modern engagement, but a legal engagement where you sanctify a woman, let's say with a coin or a ring or something else of value. That's Pesach, the engagement. There's an engagement period, which is the 49 days of counting the Omer. And then there's the marriage, which is Matan Torah, where Hashem betrothed us, so to speak, and read us the commitments, and we accepted Lahavdil Elef Havdalot, as the Goyim say, I do, is what we told HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that is what the pasuk in Shir HaShirim is alluding to, and that is what the Gemara in Ta'anit is describing it to be, that the day of the wedding is Matan Torah. Further support to that is the statement on top here from Masechet Shabbat, where it says that Moshe Rabbeinu brought them out l'krat ha'Elohim, to greet God, like a bride greeting a groom. And they stood underneath the mountain. It's a famous midrash that says that it teaches us that that the mountain of Har Sinai sort of covered them like a canopy. And Hashem says, you must receive the Torah or else you'll be buried here. Let's leave that concept aside for a second, but let's just stick on this description, this descriptive type of scene that the Torah is giving us, the Hachamim are giving us, and that is the Har Sinai was a wedding canopy in the context of this wedding between Hashem and Am Yisrael. And we know, by the way, that modern day wedding and throughout the ages, Ashkenazi, Sfaradi, most of the minhagim of weddings are based on Matan Torah. Most of the customs that we see throughout the wedding, from the veil that we put on the bride, to the marching, Ashkenazim have candles, the ring, the coin, the talit that we put over their heads, the room that they go into afterwards, all because of allusions of Matan Torah. So, based on that, there's a fascinating analysis that Rabbi Bahye in his book Kad HaKemah has. Let's return to our pasuk. So within this wedding, we were given the Aser HaDeberot. And as we said, we interface with God with the recipe that Moshe Rabbeinu gave us. Beficha, there it is, the pasuk from Parashat Nesavim. With our mouths, we learn Torah, we fulfill some mitzvot with our mouths. La'asoto, we perform physical mitzvot. And there's the middle one, Bil Babecha. But that's really the key one. The way that we interact with Hashem and the Torah, and its foundation of the relationship is mentally and emotionally, belev. And how is that? So Rabbi Bachya tells us that key middle ingredient of Moshe Rabbeinu, the heart, the lev, or the intellect, is what is demonstrated by the first three words in Aseret HaDeberot. And these first three words describe the intellectual and emotional relationship between man and God, between Jew and God. And that is the primary gift that was offered to us and that we received on Har Sinai with the giving of the Torah, which is the ability to cultivate this relationship. And let's look at it. Here are the first three words. We know it. Aseret Deberot, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, Asher Hoseticha, Me'eretz Mitzrayim, etc. The first three words are, I am Hashem, your God. You can hear those words in another famous pasuk, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Rabbi Bachya says that each one of those words referred to a mental, intellectual, emotional obligation of ours. Unlike any other religion, the Jewish religion imposes on our mind certain mental, intellectual obligations. And the first one is related from the word Anochi. Anochi indicates, and the Rambam counts this as Mizvat Aseh, the positive commandment and obligation to believe in the existence of a God. There are many other opinions as to whether Anochi is a statement, an introduction, or a command. The Rambam says it's a command. But in either case, it does indicate an idea that Am Yisrael is obliged to believe in, and that is that Anochi, Mesiut, I exist. The idea, which is the first tenet of the 13 tenets, Ekarei Emunah, a faith that one must have, according to the Rambam, a God exists. A God who is a creator, primal or pre-existed the world, who is all-powerful, who is limitless. A God exists, Anochi. That is the greatest mental burden and challenge that a Jew engages in, and it's the foundation of everything else that we have in terms of Torah, Mitzvot, and our relationship to Hashem starts right there with Anochi. Hashem, Yud-Ke Vav-Ke, we know from Kiryat Shema, Hashem Echad. This relates to God's dominion, the fact that he's Adon, right? Amonai, Adon, and he is also timeless, but specifically that he is one. Another separate obligation, another tenet of Jewish faith is to believe that this God who exists is singular, is undivided, and that everything emanates from him, and that he is the only single perfect oneness in the universe. In fact, he is the universe. Philosophical, deep, and an intellectual challenge of a lifetime that never ends, trying to understand what that means. God exists and that God is one. But it's where everything else begins. It's the foundation, that interface, that emotional and intellectual struggle is the foundation of the Torah and our acting as Jews. And finally, Elohecha, your God. Your God connotes a relationship, a warm relationship. And it says that Rabbi Bachya, that incorporates this idea that I am not just a God, a single, powerful, primal creator who is singular, but I'm your God. I'm Elohecha. And that obligates you to form a relationship, to cultivate and to work on this rapport with me throughout your lives of love. And this is also reminiscent of Kiryat Shema, because the next word after Shema Yisrael Pasuk is Ve'ahavta. And loving God means knowing God. Loving God means appreciating God. And loving God means, of course, obeying his commands. And that is the highest level of relationship that we have and we're obligated to work on and build every day of our lives. So here we have the introduction, the beginning, the first command of the 10 commandments, or more accurately, Aseret HaDeberot, because there are more than 10 commandments in it, basically describes the middle component of the way that man or Jew interacts with Torah, and that's mentally, intellectually. And that component is the foundation of our relationship with God, which is our mental, intellectual foundation with our faith in an existing singular God that we must grow to love. That gift that was given on Har Sinai, which is the foundation of our Torah, that ability, that potential, that offer to develop a relationship with the God of the world, was given in a powerful and awesome setting, a setting of a wedding, a setting that's light, that's beautiful, that's earth-shattering because it's the first of its kind, and one which we'll never forget. So that we don't only celebrate on Har Sinai, the main event and the result of that day of the 6th of Sivan, on Shabuot rather, which is the giving of Torah, but we celebrate the actual setting, the context in which it was given, the mountain, Har Sinai, the special effects. Because the special effects was our wedding, so to speak, with God, as he wed us, and he gave us this opportunity that no other nation has, which is to develop the relationship with him as his nation, and to use that foundation to observe his Torah and cultivate the relationship that we have with him as the one and only single chosen nation, Am Yisrael, the Jewish people. That is really the foundation of our celebration of receiving the Torah, and why we celebrate not only the event, but the setting of the event, which is Ma'amad Har Sinai. Happy